doing a demo with an AI pilot that actually learns as they go along, and they can do 20 demos a day and learn from everyone and improve from everyone, is going to be so much more attractive than actually having an SDR or an AE doing all that. The question I always ask myself is, I just closed this customer. I wish I could, clone that to the next 10 or 20. So it was transferring this concept of lookalikes, personifying companies into B2B. We always seen the two camps, sales and marketing. I think they're going to go away. I actually think the center of the universe for a company is going to be the CRO, and he's going to build a multitude of functions in there to engage with the entire funnel. And having a CMO and having a head of sales, I don't think we'll see those kind of roles in the future. I think we'll see much more orchestration and have a CRO looking at the entire flow.
The future of B2B sales is here, and it's nothing like what you might think. I'm Ryan McAllister, the host of the FlowState Go-to-Market podcast, where we explore breakthrough go-to-market strategies utilizing the latest AI technology. My guest today is Michael Heiberg. He's the founder and CEO of Ocean.io. This is the company that built B2B lookalike technology that's leveraged in lead gen and sales platforms today. His team started this journey 2 years before ChatGPT, and they're staying ahead of the curve utilizing tip-of-the-spear technology. In this episode, we unpack critical insights that will reshape your revenue strategy, how lookalike search has transformed lead generation, and how it's going to transform other industries, the hidden importance of data science behind B2B lead generation tools and platforms, and why all are not equal. Michael reveals his roadmap for integrating contact enrichment, research, outbound, and AI SDRs into one unified system, and how that will transform B2B sales organizations over the next 18 to 24 months. He explains why the future belongs to the CRO and go-to-market engineers, not traditional sales and marketing teams. If you're a revenue leader, this is your blueprint to stay ahead of the curve. Enjoy the episode. During my research, I found that you love waking up early and you like having a morning tea. So just a quick kind of flow state. How do you get going in the morning, and what kind of tea are you drinking these days?
This morning I woke up 5:15, was out the door 5:30, up for an hour and a half walk, and back for 7 o'clock call with Europe. I drink white Yona. I drink Chinese tea. The top level, from the Yunnan province of, and I've been drinking white Yunnan for many, many years.
Can you give us a quick overview of your background and your current role as the founder and CEO of Ocean.io?
Absolutely. Be very happy to do that, Ryan. I basically grew up in application sales, or SAP, Oracle, the whole supply chain space, is where I did my first sales experience, and then moved into more operational roles. And then I pulled back from it and started to engage more as an investor into the market, seed investing, both here in the US and in Europe. And then I started to look into the whole concept of lookalike based on what was happening in the B2C space. The question I always ask myself is, I just closed this customer. I wish I could clone that to the next 10 or 20. And so it was transferring this concept of lookalikes, personifying companies actually, into B2B. That got us going at the end of 2009. And had the first version out in 2020, based on vectoring a landing page of a company, which was in those days completely mind-boggling. Nobody else did that, and we were on the first Elasticsearch version that actually supported vector. And we're early on. We had this wonderful ability. It was a little bit of a rocket science experiment because it was not a black box. It requires a lot of tweaking of the algorithm for the individual user. But when we got to version 3 or 4 of it in 2021 to 22, it started to be so robust that it started to take off. And then at the same time, you had ChatGPT hitting the market and educating everyone on what contextual understanding is all about. And so we didn't have to educate the market anymore. And then suddenly the whole thing took off. And but the first years we were the hammer and looking for the nail, and it was, the team. I'm very grateful for the team because it's still the same product team and everything else, and CTO and everything else. And we started around. We knew we had something, and it was just a question of the market maturing into looking for exactly that kind of technology. And to be very open, it definitely did. It definitely did. So we pioneered the whole lookalike concept into B2B, and since then we have seen a few copycats out there. But in the end of the day, it's sounding slightly arrogant. We're the only game in town. We are not an LLM based, like our friends at Apollo. We are native built, ground up, and that gives a whole different perspective of scalability, precision, and all that. And we've done it both on companies and now on people. The next generation is, if you have done title normalization of all the people on LinkedIn, and you have at the same time vectorized all their profiles, I can allow you to scan in your job posting, and I'll be able to source the candidates directly based on that job posting. Because if you scan it in, I will vectorize the job posting, and we will match that vectorizing algorithm with your ideal candidates for you. So we're going to change completely how you do recruitment. We're going to, as we changed how you do lookalike search within your target audience. So it's just starting.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize that you were looking at the recruiting space as well as
We're
just
starting to go into that.
And when you were building that, it sounds like you were trying to go, from like profiling in B2C and then taking that to B2B. What were the first couple years like as you did that?
Yeah, the first couple of years was struggling. It was prototyping. We thought we could do it on keywords. Obviously, that's not good enough. Orange is the new black. Is orange the color, or is it their fruit? And obviously, keyword doesn't really distinguish between that.
Yep.
And whereas NLP vectorizing does that. And that's exactly why we gravitating after the first couple of versions over to NLP and release that. But we learned a lot. Which component of a landing page do you actually use to understand what the company does, and how many pages deep do you go in order to do, and how do you look at embedding versus vectoring and all that. So there was a lot of lessons learned in the first versions of this. So yeah, but that's if you're on the pioneering end of, obviously you're at the bleeding end and waiting a lot of times for Elasticsearch to come out with the next version in order for us to scale faster. Doing an instant search on 65 million companies based on vectorize, I tell you, it requires a lot on the database. So we learned a lot.
Yeah, and you guys this is prior to any OpenAI kind of
It was
big
2 years
announcement.
before. It was 2 years before they announced. I've, obviously asked. You've been around for a while. Yeah, but the market was not ready for it. It was not until you saw AI releasing their product, people realized overnight what this was about. We didn't have to educate, because we tried to educate people what was different, and we couldn't. We couldn't articulate it. And on a landing page, you only have 3 seconds. You go in, the people comes into the landing page, look at it, and say, but that's what Zoom Info has. No, it's not. It's very different. And so then we started to put it up on our landing page, put an entire backend up, test it yourself, and then you have a 2 or 3 seconds to whoa the moment, because then they key in their last close one, and then they realize that we right out of the gate can find all the target similar to that, and then they start to become really interested in this kind of technology.
Next question, what major shifts are you seeing within the industry right now? Obviously there's something new coming out every day with AI, but within the lead generation, whether that's Lookalike or other competitors, what are those shifts that you're seeing right now?
Yeah, I think we are shifting. I see the major shift I see right now is that we're shifting from just a pretty surface to actually understanding what kind of data set you need in order to support the process. The first versions you saw was focusing very much on pretty phase in front of the process. What we see now, second generation coming up, where they're much more interested in the quality of the data set they actually use in order to target. And because they realize that, spit in, spit out, which is pretty much the data science aspect to it, was pretty much what they just did it faster. So the second generation is now starting to come along where they're much more focused on the actual underlying normalization of data and in order to automate the processes. And the second thing we also seeing is that the entire funnel is now starting to be covered. That means you will have the AI SDRs on the top end, and then you have more process-oriented engagement, demos, contract negotiation, and everything else along the funnel down to closing, and then hand over to CS, where the entire intelligence that was gathered during the sales process is now handed over to CS. All of that is now starting to come into play as a full engaged cycle, sales cycle. And we don't see one company doing it. We see a multitude of different companies covering different parts of this. And we also see the CM systems being, clearly much more intelligent, where the laggards, and I've been very vocal about this, that the legacy systems are really, really not up to par in terms of how fast they're moving and how fast the market is moving right now.
Yeah, and I know you guys have, your own APIs that connect into some of the existing CRM systems today. You have a deal, you have a lookalike, you close that deal. Are you feeding that back into a Salesforce or,
Yeah,
other large
yeah.
CRM? Okay.
We're feeding it back in, and we're not just feeding it back in, we're also uploading that data set, lookalikes, and actually clustering that into the ICPs and flipping that around into understanding the lead scoring based on that. Look at the legacy CRM system lead scoring; it's completely analog. If you can actually start to do lead scoring based on your ICPs and the dynamic composition of the ICPs, and actually do it and then start to lead inbound traffic based on that relative to who you actually sold to, then it becomes a whole different game. And that's where we're deeply involved in those data sets to our go-to-market application customers for our API. We're bringing this out into our API.
It,
See,
it
we see the Clays, and we see those kind of companies really interested in this.
I ran go-to-market for a couple different
Mhm.
big tech companies, and we threw humans at that problem previously,
Exactly.
right? You throw a B, how big can you get the BDM team? And it's just not efficient. Your best BDM, yeah, they still have to go through the mound of data and try to do that, but when I look at some of the legacy CRM systems, it's like this is basically, a
It
glorified
is.
spreadsheet, and
Yeah.
having a human go through that, and whether or not they're a good data engineer or data scientist to be able to break that down and really go after the next customers. That's how success was determined in some of the teams that I've managed. My question with you is the B2B tech orgs, your prediction in the next 2 years, what that looks like for sales orgs and leaders and how that is going to just change.
I see the rise of the go-to-market engineer. I see the decline of the SDR teams. I see a very distinct understanding of what you wanna automate and how you want to orchestrate that automation. Moving away from the more human-to-human engagement, it is now turning into a much more orchestration with different automation tools that covers different aspects of your go-to-market motion. And so it require less of interaction, less of one-on-ones, and much more on understanding the automation, understanding, the traditional SDR role in low or ACV transactional oriented system is going to go away. It's going to be taken over by automated outreach and engagement tools. Doing a demo with an AI pilot that actually learns as they go along and they can do 20 demos a day and learn from everyone and improve from everyone is going to be so much more attractive than actually having an SDR or an AE doing all that. And so we're going to see a, a really shift. And those that will be winners out of this is the chief revenue officers that understand that trend, that has a orchestration, people sitting in the orchestration of that and really automate the whole thing using systems like, Clay and others as the backbone of how they actually start to orchestrate that, and having much more of a engineering background than actually a human engagement background. This is very much analytical, process-oriented engagement than it's actually to do with whether you can greet people nicely. So the whole thing is changing, and there will always be the really good AEs, and there will always be a really good fit for these guys. There's things automation cannot do, but the 80% is going to be done by automation. The
Yeah.
finesse, the understanding what the customer is not necessarily saying, but actually hiding away and getting that flashed out is where the good AEs come in. But making sure that you engage with the entire decision maker, the group of decision makers within an organization, you don't need an AE to map that out. That can be done automatically.
Yep. It sounds like there's a lot of changes heading
Big time. Big
to
time.
the sales. I think not even sales, right? It can also go up the full stack, even into marketing as well, right?
It will definitely go up to marketing. Look at all the attribution application that's coming up, and it's like the whole advertising shifting to LLMs now. OpenAI is months away from releasing the ability to advertise on their platform. And why would you advertise on LinkedIn if you can advertise at the search moment they prompt for exactly your product? Yeah. It's going to shift the whole thing, and the traditional we do LinkedIn and we do Google Ads and all that is changing.
Yep. So a follow-up on that. So in terms of an organization, is that really just going to be a CRO that has all of the different data sources coming in and those AI agents that are driving forward with the tip of spear tech, and then still having maybe a few AEs or, really skilled BDMs that are manipulating that and having that face-to-face touch? Is that what you're seeing in some of the companies that you talk with?
Let me speculate. We always seen the two camps, sales and marketing. I think they're going to go away. I actually think the center of the universe for a company is going to be the CRO, and he's going to build a multitude of functions in there to engage with the entire funnel, and having a CMO and having a head of sales. I don't think we'll see those kind of roles in the future. I think we'll see much more orchestration and have a CRO looking at the entire flow, because it will be handing over to, the whole concept of a qualified lead, an MQL, I think is going to go away. I think that whole thing is disappearing, and it was really what a CMO could hang their hat on, is like, here's how many MQLs we delivered and how many of those converted into SQLs, and I think it's going to go away. I think we will look at data in a whole different way, and so I think it will be the days of the chief revenue officer, and they look at the revenue as a holistic flow, and not just as a sequence of duties like marketing, sales, brand. It's gonna be completely integrated.
Fascinating.
That's my take. That's my take on it. I see it already, and I see a lot of companies actually center around the CRO, that not necessarily just coming from the sales side, but actually bridging the whole thing. And I also see that a lot of GMOs are under pressure.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure, and I think there's some catch-up games here.
Interesting. To ask one more question is how is your sales team, utilizing your technology today? Or are you primarily relying only on PLG, product-led
No,
growth? Or
actually, the PLG is much more a showcase for our technology.
Okay.
And then it's back to what I said earlier, Ryan. We had a hard time describing where we are different. We use the PLG to show the world where we are different. And the PLG attracts a lot of people in and they test it out. The main business for Ocean is actually our API. This is where we power the go-to-market application using our technology, which they then test out on our PLG or they test it out on our API, but actually embed it into their application. That's our main business.
Got it.
And that's where we see Ocean go. It started with us being, the search engine in Clay, and now we are basically all the other Clays out there is using Ocean, and it's domino effect. We just closed Explorium, which is releasing an MCP integration into Ocean. And you know what? That means we are now entering into the ability to prompt directly for your target audience. And that is the next big thing that's coming out now.
Yep.
Really.
Well, let's go into a little bit different direction. So what's working really well for you, and internally at Ocean, and then also flip side, like what's been frustrating? Is that, speed for the market to change or adoption of the technology?
Once we are integrated into a customer's application or go-to-market application, it works really well. We are running it on a consumption-based pricing, and it really plays a testament to it. Everyone knows that now Ocean is integrated. Is integrated into Play, and that aspect works really, really well. It requires a lot of understanding on our sales team because the sales is not transactional. It's entirely engaging into understanding exactly what kind of, motion they want to automate and how Ocean can fit in and help them do exactly that. They're bringing out an agent, Copy AI is a good example of it, and how we can integrate into that agent and help them satisfy the customer's need for automation. And that is, for us getting people in that and actually understand, because it requires a lot of understanding of the go-to-market space, a lot
Yeah.
of understanding of the actual processes that's happening and the agent space. And that is our, biggest constraint for growth, is bringing people in that actually understands that and educate them and bringing them out into the market. Our opportunity is so big out there. There's so many who want Ocean, but it's also an educational process each time of how they could actually expand their current product footprint using Ocean into their customer set. And at the same time, we're bringing out things that they've never seen before. And so it's educational, and they usually take 2 or 3, 4 months to digest it internally, come back and say, okay, now we are ready for it.
Yeah, that's got to be frustrating when it's like, hey, and every customer is a little bit different, right? Their use case is going to be different. So yeah,
Very different.
So yeah, going back to the previous point of like you've got to have really good AEs, really good, frontline, being
Yeah,
able to listen to what the customers are saying, really have empathy for their problems, but then also be able to like look at that landscape and lead them to, hey, you're doing this today, but there might be actually more gold at the end of this.
exactly. And where we have been really good is some of the newer applications coming out into the market, where we have been really, really good at, where it's the more the legacy oriented application that struggling a little bit understanding how to do this. They're a little bit more set in stone, and we used to do it this way and we'll keep on doing it this way. But that's changing. It's changing rapidly now.
That's something that I see on the agency side of my business, right? There's some applications that these businesses have built that are just archaic. And it's almost like, we could go back in and just build it from scratch. And
Faster.
it's much faster. It's going to be a better stack for them to, continue to build off. When you're talking with customers and you see that, are you partnering up with any other organizations to help those customers bridge those gaps? Or is that
Not
something that
really, not really. We see ourselves as partners and sometimes educators. Here's what is actually doable, and showing them some of the things and let them, excuse me, play around with these kind of new models. And then after a certain time, they come back and say, okay, now we fully understand the impact of what you showed us. Now we are ready to get it in. Yeah. Because some of the things we do is if I tell you we can take all your close ones, and cluster them into exact groups of lookalike ICPs, then you say, okay, that sounds great. But once you see it, and we actually play that on a given list of ICP, a given list of close ones, it's like, whoa, you haven't seen that before, and it happens like this, and then you start to. The next phase is okay. Now let's look at lead scoring as a function of what we just did, and now let's look at your inbound traffic,
Yep.
resolve that, and lead score that as a function of what we just did, and then start to build engagement motion for score 1 to 2 and score 3 to 4 and all that, and then they start, whoa, but that's a big mouthful.
Yep. It's
Exactly.
a
And you don't
lot to
do that
chew.
overnight.
Yeah.
It's a step-by-step process where we help.
But yeah, I mean, once they get the initial phase, and then it's like the second phase, and then the flywheel start.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah,
yeah,
if
exactly.
you're
Then they
recategorizing,
understand the flywheel. Yeah, exactly. I completely agree.
yeah, you're clearly in the middle of the automation flow with B2B companies today. When you look at where you want to be with Ocean in 2 years, what does that look like? Is that just being, embedded as the go-to technology? You're at the tip of the spear, like timing
Yeah,
couldn't have been better. A 2-year, 5-year look, what does that look like for you and Ocean?
yeah, but it's back to the challenge. I wish there was more data science conceptual understanding in AI SDRs, because it has, in my mind, focused too much on the pretty face and less on the data science aspect of it. So if I solve that challenge overnight, that will improve it for the customers, and it will improve it for the products. And because then you will see micro campaigning on scale instead of mass campaigning on scale. Yeah. And the micro campaigning on scale is the relevance, because that's what automation is really, really good at. That is creating micro campaigns, but creating thousands of them. And because with micro campaigns, you can be relevant for that specific audience. And it's all about open rates, engagement rates. It's all about relevance. And it's not about bombarding your inbox with whatever, hi, is it a good day today, or whatever that you see, whatever the opening. And but the challenge has been to convince those ISDR companies that it's not about the pretty face. It's about the underlying data science and the process underneath it. And we succeeded somehow, some of it, not yet with the full thing.
Yeah, I can imagine. Just to double down on that, which AI SDR company is your favorite?
Two of our customers is AR SDRs. They actually call that, and Jiva. They're very, very famous customers, but there's a couple others I would wish I could say the same thing about.
Yeah, got it. Fair enough. As we wrap up, beyond all the automation and AI that we've discussed today, when you step back and think about your life and career, what helps you operate in your personal flow state?
The ability to be on my toes. I grew up in sales. I was in marketing for Oracle, and things has changed so dramatically, and it's changing every day, that unless you embrace that change and really see that as your core competency of embracing that change. If we go back to Ocean, it was like, now we pivot again, and now we change again, converting that into a virtue instead of, fighting it, a virtue of, because our ability to be ahead of the whole thing is our ability to change as fast as anyone. So that is really what I see has been the biggest impact on this is engagement in it.
Great answer. And last question is what other leaders should I have on the Flow State Go-to-Market podcast? Who else, peers that I should reach out to and invite?
AI SDR's CEO is really a smart guy. He's really good in this space. I see David Connor at the Swarm. is doing really interesting stuff and is ahead of the game. Then I see Andrew over at 40 AI is doing mind-boggling things, and hopefully that they'll become a customer of Ocean. But he's taking engagement on LinkedIn to a whole different level. Yeah, and you say, yeah, but that's not go-to-market. It is actually. 90% of everyone who's selling right now is engaging on LinkedIn. Can you imagine using Body to automate engagement and who you should talk to and everything else? Andrew D'Souza could be really interesting. He's doing mind-boggling things over there with his partner and so
Awesome.
that's just three of just on top of my mind.
Yeah, those Andrew I is on the potential list, or everything that they're doing.
I'll be happy to introduce you.
Okay, great.
I'm talking to him almost every day.
Awesome. Well, Michael, I really appreciate you taking the time and joining me today. And like I said,
Talk to you. Bye.
all right, that's a wrap on this incredible conversation with Michael Heiberg from Ocean.io. If you're a revenue leader or a go-to-market professional, you just heard the roadmap for the next 18 months. The integration of lookalike search, contact enrichment, and AI SDRs isn't something that's coming down the line. It's here today. The question is, what are you going to do about it? If you're ready to jump in on this AI sales revolution and take the next steps in your business, be sure to subscribe to the FlowState Go-to-Market podcast. Be sure to hit the notification bell. If you have breakthroughs or insights in AI technology, leveraging sales and B2B, I'd love to feature you on the show. Reach out through YouTube or contact me on LinkedIn. Before we wrap up, I want to thank today's sponsor, Activate AI. Activate AI helps companies scale their growth targets by leveraging AI technologies like Ocean.io and Clay that we spoke about in today's episode. And if you're looking for ways to scale your business, feel free to reach out to the team at activateai.io. They can run you through a sales process audit and see where you might have gaps and where you can up-level your technology. Stay in the flow. I'm Ryan McAllister, and I'll see you next time.